Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast. Okay, so let's jump in. I came across this article. It's from the Telegraph, and this is in the UK. And I saw this article, and I just had something to say. So I'm going to go through it, okay? So this article is from The Telegraph. It says, Tyler Eastleigh, a 26-year-old man in the UK, was convicted of sexually assaulting a girl under 13 while babysitting her in 2018. The child was 5 years old. He was 20. He was sentenced for only 9 years, and he successfully argued that his parole hearing should be held in private rather than in public. Okay? The parole board accepted claims by Eastleigh's lawyer that a public hearing would be distressing for him and could impede his ability to present his case effectively. What case? What case do you have to present effectively? Okay, the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, and the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Shennick, expressed disappointment with the decision, stating that the interests of the offender should not be placed above those of the victim. You're right. And the public. The victim's mother had previously stated that it was important for people to be made aware of Eastleigh's action. You dang Skippy, okay? This does not make any sense to me, okay? Only 9 years? That's all he got for this? What's going on in the UK? They're worried about distressing this man who sexually assaulted a 5-year-old child, okay? I think they should do this in public. A point needs to be made so that laws can be changed, okay? Also in the article, they mentioned that a parole board, can I say that word? Panel member said even though the offense was extremely serious without a long-standing and an extensive impact on the victim, it was not a case which was nationally notable at the time, or which involved multiple victims, or an offense that occurred over an extensive period of time. So this does not justify a public hearing. Yes, it does. So what if it didn't happen an extensive amount of time, or, this only happened once? Remember, he's 20. He's a grown man. She is 5 years old, This is extremely disgusting and vile. I'm not, I don't know anything about the UK's, laws and legal system. The US ain't, that much better. But, at the end of the day, I feel like he would get more here. This is crazy. This guy is scum of the earth. Touching a 5-year-old child and getting only 9 years. And you want your hearing to be in secret because you don't want to be distressed by the public. Give me a break. You should be distressed. You should be in full distress. Okay? I think he should get, can they reach, I don't know how the UK law is or anything, but can they retry people and make him go to, he should get life. Like when his parole hearing is up, because it should be up if he was sentenced in, what did the article say? He was sentenced in 2018. So then it should be up in 2027. So I'm like, serve your time. You don't need to be paroled. You did something horrible. You cannot be rehabilitated, Like this is not, I don't think specifically this case is something that can be rehabilitated. You are disgusting in every way. You're a foul human being. You're the scum of the earth. I hope you get what's coming for you in prison. Stay there, stay there. And I hope you've been getting what's coming for you because he's been in prison. So I hope you've been getting what's coming for you in prison. Stay there. This is no, okay? This should be public. And I really hope maybe they change their mind and make this more public. Because apparently he was granted this to make his hearing private instead of public. So hopefully they respect, the mother of this child. She does want everyone to know about this situation and make this public, because this needs to change. This absolutely needs to change, you know? Man, if I can post, I'm gonna figure out if I can post a picture in my, if I can post the article pic in this video to like insert it. That way y'all can see him, so everyone can see him, okay? Because this is, no, you don't deserve any type of animosity. Like, you don't deserve to be anonymous at all. Everyone needs to know who you are. You don't deserve secrets. You don't deserve secret meetings. You don't deserve private anything. No, no. Okay. Okay, so anyways, that's a topic that I had something to say about that, so that's something I had to say. Okay, so moving on to my next topic that I had something to say. It's involved children in another way, okay? So I saw this headline saying that the K through 12 must sign a verification against DEI to receive federal money, okay, from the Trump administration. Okay, and this article was in the AP News, okay? So here's a little bit from the AP News about this topic. It says the article discusses a new directive from the Trump's administration education department that requires K through 12 school to certify that they are in compliance with federal civil rights law and ending any discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion practices as a condition for receiving federal funding. The administration is claiming that many schools have used DEI programs to discriminate against certain group, and the certification aims to address this, okay? The directive has faced criticism from teachers unions and others who argue it conflicts with the administration's promise of local control in education. Federal overreach, potential violations of constitutional rights, which is, violation of the First and Fifth Amendment, according to the American Federation of Teachers. And of course, the use of financial leverage to influence educational practice, using federal aid to force educators to align with its politics and ideology. Okay, this is a lot. I mean, of course, everything is a lot because we've seen so much coming from the Trump administration recently that it's a lot, but it's not really surprising, right? Okay, it's surprising, but not really surprising in terms of like what next? Like, oh my gosh, like what next? Okay. So my thing is, I don't know what this will mean, right, for what this will mean for schools in terms of this new executive order for public schools, right? Will schools now have to prove that if they are, if the teachers are non-white, that they are DEI hires, that they're not DEI, like, what are we doing here? Like, how are we certifying? What's the certification process in terms of proving that they're not, that they're not having discriminatory, why can't I say that word? Discriminatory practices, okay? Say the school signs this initiative. Are the schools that really need it, are they going to get this funding? Let's say they do sign it. Are they going to get this funding, or are they going to pull back? Because they're still making federal cuts, as far as I can see in the news. So are these schools really going to get this money? I remember when I was teaching, there was Title I funding, okay? And Title I funding was, it was a federally funded program that helps, low income, that helps school district with low incomes, families that were low income, and it also had programs for students that were failing or were at risk to fail, okay? So it provides funding, it addressed those needs. How are they gonna fare? Are they gonna be affected by this? How will this go? Was this what was planned all along? Are we trying to really affect specific areas and specific schools? Is this what this is mostly for? Like, let's be real. Why are you wanting this? It seems like the thing they're trying to avoid, which they say discriminatory practices is what they're trying to avoid with this DEI initiative. It seems like that's what's happening. Like, this is what's happening more and more. So I don't know who you think you're fooling with these lies. This is not trying to intimidate school district into doing what you want. To me, that's definitely setting the stage for more unfair hiring practices. It doesn't even make sense. Okay. DEI was something that was supposed to bring fairness and equity, right, in schools, job, public spaces. But it seems like it's turning into something else, and all because of one person who decides that he wants to make all the decisions and all the rules and change things, who has clearly has his own agenda. He wants to, divide the world and conquer the U.S. and the world, of course, why? Leave schools alone and leave the children alone. These children need the funding. School system need the funding. Teachers barely get paid all the time. They're spending their money buying school supplies. There's a lot of schools that definitely need the funding, especially in those states like, Mississippi, because you hear about other states funding Mississippi's education system. Like, come on, come on. When will this end? Okay. So that's my thought on that issue. So next, I'd like to talk about is this. It's quick. It's real quick. I just saw it and I was like, and it may be something that a lot of people already know, but it was new to me. And I saw it kind of like trending in the news now. So I was like, interesting. So I had to click on the article and see more about it. It's about China and the US. Okay. So it says that the U.S. bans government personnel in China from having romantic or sexual relations with Chinese citizens. Okay, this is in Citizens. This is in the AP News. Okay, so the article that I saw, which I'll have a link to all my articles in the description, just in case anyone wants to kind of go back and read these articles or interested in what these articles have to say. Okay, so this article that I saw, it talks about a new policy being implemented by the U.S. government that bans American government personnel in China, as well as their family members and contractors with security clearances, okay, from engaging in any romantic or sexual relationship with Chinese citizens. The policy was put into effect on January 23rd of January 2023, on January 2023 by the departing U.S. Ambassador Nicole Burns, okay? After reading this article, I was like, why is it trending more now, huh? Interesting, why is it trending more now, okay? Shortly before he left China, the policy covers U.S. missions in mainland China, including the embassy in Beijing, and consulate in other cities, as well as the American consulate in Hong Kong. The policy is a return to a more restrictive approach that was common during the Cold War, when such relationships were seen as a security risk. The document also mentioned that China has been tightening its own control on its overseas activities of its personnel, which, makes sense, Okay. So this policy is mainly for government personnel, working overseas in China, but it does show that there is a crackdown on security with China, which there should be, because I did a thing where they're, sending out these texts, these toll text scams, scamming money and all that stuff from people, and who knows what type of information they're gathering with that. Let's just keep it real. Okay, and during the Cold War era, there was a lot of spying going on. So if they're bringing it back to the Cold War era, then it sounds like there may be a lot of spying going on now. Okay, and the article mentioned, honeypots, which are beautiful people who go around and kind of they infiltrate different businesses and different area of society and kind of date and marry while they spy. Okay. So apparently there's lots of honeypotting going on. I'm not sure if that's the right way to say it, but they're honeypots. Okay. And business espionage is ramping up. Okay. So there seems to be a lot going on with China recently. Okay. Um, should we be more concerned is the question, which is we probably should be. Okay. We probably should be, because I don't know why this is all of a sudden trending in the news when this happened, basically when this new directive by this former ambassador. Was it ambassador I said? Yeah. Yeah, by this former ambassador happened in January of 2023. So, yeah, it seems like stuff is ramping up, and we just need to be a little bit more careful, especially because we've seen it with TikTok, with the TikTok ban. Is like they're really trying to crack down on dealings with China and having China in America's business. That's why they're trying to get someone in America to buy TikTok. And as y'all can see, we're still coming up on that TikTok deadline. Trump had extended it, but we're still coming on. China still owns TikTok. And so they want someone in America to really be the one to, TikTok is still out of China. So they want someone in the US to kind of buy it. So now there's like, some type of bidding war for, TikTok, so that, Americans can keep using TikTok, without any safety risk. Okay, so speaking of China, okay, I have more to add about China. Okay, so it looks like a trade war is escalating. Okay, I was scrolling through this morning and I saw it says that China hits the U.S. with a 34% tariff on all U.S. goods. Okay, and this was after Trump's, Liberation Day, as it was called, blitz of tariffs. Okay. And so the article that I'm going to be referencing is is on npr.org. Okay, it says the trade war between the United States and China has escalated, with China imposing a 34% tariff on all U.S. imports in retaliation for new U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods starting April 10th. China has also added 16 U.S. entities to an export control list, prohibiting them from purchasing Chinese products designated as dual use for civil and military purposes, and also included 11 U.S. companies on a list of unreliable entities, okay, effectively blacklisting them. China has also imposed export controls on 7 types of rare earth minerals. The Chinese government has urged the U.S. to lift its unilateral tariff measures and resolve the trade differences through consultation. The research firm Capital Economics has stated that this aggressive response from China makes a near-term deal to end the trade war between these two superpowers highly unlikely. Okay, so it seems like Trump did all of this, right? Because he did these tariffs, right? He did a whole bunch of tariffs recently, saying that he's trying to help, manufacturing and all that stuff in the U.S. And he didn't think things were fair. So it seems like his calculations for these new tariffs were based on the U.S. having like a trade deficit with other countries. Okay, he felt like the U.S. was getting the short end of the stick and wasn't treated fairly in trade deals. Okay, he basically felt that other countries may have unfair trade practices with the U.S. Okay, so I guess that's why he did his calculations. And there was something explaining how he did his calculations, which I was like, okay, I'm a little confused on the percentage this and the percentage that. So, but he basically based it off of us having where the U.S. having a disadvantage in trade deals because of unfair practices. He says, okay. And I'm no politician, but I don't know, all these tariffs, I don't see that bringing manufacturing back to the US like he wants. Okay. China does a lot of manufacturing. I don't see that happening right now, and I don't see this helping that cause. Okay. And that's messing up a lot of jobs in the US. Okay. It seems like all this like crazy tariff dealing and all this getting into it with other countries, it seems like it's just messing up the US economy, in my opinion. And I'm no politician, like I said, but that's just what I think. Okay. So I don't know when this will end because this is absolutely insane. And that's all I got to say on that. Okay. I'd like to move on because Trump, there's so much Trump, 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 Trump. I had a few more stuff that I'd like to discuss, but it's also Trump related. And I'm like, okay, let's get away from Trump for a moment. I'm sure I'll get back to him in some other posts, in my little quick other posts. But for my blog, we'll stop talking about him for now and move on to a lighter topic. Okay. For my podcast, we'll move on to a lighter topic. And this is from USA Today, or not USA Today, from today.com. Today.com. Okay. As I was scrolling through, I saw an article and it mentioned Ruby Bridges. So I was like, oh, let me see what's going on. So a friend of mine, we were talking, okay, and we were talking about her son and her buying all these books. She mentioned she had bought all these books recently because of all that's going on with DEI and them removing books out of schools and basically trying to erase history, okay, erase history. Okay, rewrite what we already know, change what we already know, kind of almost wanting to whitewash what it seems to me, like they're kind of wanting to whitewash everything that's happened. And you can't change history. History is history. Getting rid of books is not going to change anything. History has already been done. Getting rid of a few books isn't going to affect that. I mean, they're trying to, but it's just not going to affect that. Okay. And so we were having this discussion and she said, she got these books to make sure, that he knows his history and knows, about the past moving into the present and have a better understanding of it. Okay. We're regressing for no reason, apparently, and it doesn't even make any sense. So when I came across this article stating that Ruby Bridges, who's an instrumental civil rights figure from our recent past, has a new children's book. When I say recent past, this was like 65 years ago when we first heard of Ruby Bridges and her impact, going back to schools and education, and her impact in walking into an all-white school. And walking into an all-white school back in, 1960, right? And everybody could remember seeing that little girl, the picture of that little girl with like armed guards. Were they armed? Yeah, with like armed guards, kind of walking. You just have that image in your head of that little girl walking into that school. She was like 5 or 6 years old, a child walking into that school, trying to make a difference in this world with segregation, and how bold and brave of that little child, So everyone can remember that. So I saw that and I was like, what's going on, So let's see. The article, back to the article says, and this is on today.com. Again, I'll have a link for you guys if y'all are interested. The article says Ruby Bridges, a civil rights icon, shares her story of integrating her all-white public school in 1960 with a first grade teacher who became her best friend. The bond between Bridges and her teacher, Barbara Henry, is a subject of her new children's book. Okay, which is Ruby Bridges, A Talk with My Teacher. Bridges attended classes alone for a full year. Imagine a 5-year-old child for a full year with only Henry present to teach her. Okay, Henry created a sanctuary for Bridges, who was walked into the building by federal marshals amid white protesters. Many white families withdrew their children from the school due to her presence. a child. Okay, imagine withdrawing your child, withdrawing your children because a black child has entered that classroom. Okay. Um, Okay, so Bridges attended class by herself for a full year with just a teacher. Okay, Henry created a sanctuary for Bridges, who was walked into the building by federal marshals amid white protesters. Many white families withdrew their children from the school due to her presence. Bridges attended classes alone for a full year with only Henry there to teach her. Despite the hate outside, Bridges and Henry found love and support in the classroom. Bridges believed that the story of integration can continue to resonate with children today as they resonate with the impact of a teacher like Henry. Okay. And it seems like that's something that's needed now, like this happened 65 years ago, but gosh darn, like we clearly need something like that now in a book like that to remind us of our past because look at our future. Look at this DEI nonsense and how they're trying to remove stuff from the classroom, okay? And I know everyone, I thought this was cute because I thought, everyone needs a teacher, an advisor, a person that believes in them like this, that will stick with you no matter what. And the fact that she had this and can remember this years after. And in the article, they did show like a picture of her and the teacher now today, which is very cool, okay? Our children, especially in this racial climate, definitely needs something like that. They need that reminder because this racial climate is looking bleak again for no reason, right? Because we have one person again trying to stir things up, and again, I'm gonna keep this positive, okay? So I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go there with that. But let's teach our kids and show our kids things differently, okay? The next generation. Let's stop this division, this hate. Let's figure out a way to stop this division and this hate. Stand up for what's right, okay? We need to show progress and change. Yeah, so that's what I have to say about this. So if anyone is interested in getting that children's book, that's a good one. I may get it. I don't have any children, but just for when I have child to stock up on these books that teach history and teaches about, acceptance and understanding and change and progress, So that's all I have to say for now. I will catch you on the next one.